Yo, what is up, everybody? It is Archimedes Aizen here, back at it again with another video. Now, this video is no special video. This is a one-shot for the Halloween special. Now, I know at this time of recording, it's still October 31st, but when it's uploaded and Izu's lazy ass wouldn't have, edited it, before the end of today, so it'll probably be tomorrow. So, yeah. Without further ado, guys, hopefully you enjoy this what if, and hopefully I get some ideas in the middle of this, since I'm doing this off the top of my head. But don't get discouraged, okay? You know, I do this all the time. I'm a professional. But let's start this yeah. So pretty much Ichigo Kurosaki would have been born the same way, and everything would have been fine until the day on the Hollow Attack, when the Grand Fisher attacked his mother, and then Masaki tried to use her blood vein, which is like the Quincy technique, is like almost like iron skin on your skin, which protects you from any attack. But pretty much at the same moment, coincidentally, Yuha used his Oswalin technique, which pretty much absorbed every half-blood or like dirty Quincy, like any Quincy that was infected by Hollow. Well, he just absorbed them, so that didn't really give her enough time to basically use her blood vein, since her attacks come from Yuha, who is the king of the Quincy's. But before I go on a tangent, let's just continue. So basically what would happen is, on this day, Ichigo would have been killed along with Masaki. Now, this kind of sounds kind of weird, and you're wondering what approach I'm doing with this. Just trust the system, okay? So Ichigo's like Zanpakuto or Zangetsu. This guy's mad. Like, how the fuck did this Grand Fisher? This guy's not a Vaster Lorde, and he still killed Ichigo like it was nothing. So what happened is, when Ichigo would go down to like Mundo, he would be a Hollow, and he's running around. Basically, Zangetsu would like take over his body, and this guy went into Black Force energy mode, and he would have started like attacking Hollows. But let's just get into that. So Ichigo's 9-year-old body, or now dead 9-year-old body, would be walking around the deserts of Mundo. Now, he would come up upon this forest when for some reason instinctively he would know that this was the the Gillian forest. Menos Grande are the classified hollows that evolved from normal hollows. So it's Gillian, Adhukas, and Vaster Lordes, and then if you got the Hokyoku used on you, then you'd be in a wrong car. So pretty much Naruto, what the fuck? Ichigo would walk in, and he would just kind of summon the Tensa Zangetsu sword, the bleached out one, and he would start to go through the whole forest, and he would start to slay Gillians like from left to right like it was nothing. So and obviously absorbing them, since that's what hollows do. So just this forest alone, he would have absorbed from the usual monster light to more developed. He kind of would have start to turn into that of his form that he used against Old Man Zangetsu in the Fill arc, or the same form that he used when he was fighting like Ichigo was used or turned into in the training to get his Hollow Mess in that form. If you actually watched it, but you would know, with the huge tail and all. And he would start to, turn into that form, and he would turn into that form. Now, after he would walk out of the forest, there would be nothing inside. It'd just be like just an empty forest with no hollows in there, since Ichigo killed every single hollow, and he was almost at that of a Vaster Lorde. But his time was depleting, since if he didn't kill any hollows, soon, then he would die. Now, what would happen is he would then walk upon a group of Adhukas. Now, this would be the same group that followed Grimmjow, but then at the end, Grimmjow killed him. But there was a little bit before that, so yeah. So he would walk upon them, and the Adhukas didn't want to kill anymore, and this was quite abnormal. So they would tell Ichigo to kill him. Ichigo really didn't care. It's Zangetsu technically, and he would literally just swipe his blade, and a Sero would kind of form out of it. It would go and pretty much hit the hollows, completely exterminating them into dust, tiny particles, which Zangetsu would then eat. Now, over the years, Ichigo Zangetsu would have kept killing hollows, making friends along the way, kind of like Okiura and Stark. Now, it would have been only 2 friends technically, so I don't know why I said friends. It's not really that much. So in these years, maybe around 6 years, he would then evolve to that of a Vasta Lorde. But something weird would happen one day. He, Ukiura, and Stark would have just finished killing some Vasta Lordes, protecting that of. So yeah. After Ichigo would have killed, or Zangetsu would have killed the Hollows. Jeez, man, that was traumatic. Now, after Ichigo and Stark and Okura would have killed all of the Hollows, and if you guys are wondering why I'm pausing, but you don't know I'm pausing, but bro, Xehther is I'm recording in a VC with other people, and Xehther's just coming in and just randomly talking. Xehther's he's not passing that vibe check. Come on, man. But we continue this what if when Ichigo would have killed all the Hollows, and for some reason they would have felt a presence or a pressure behind them, and they would have turned around and they would have seen a man with silky black hair, glasses, a captain type Hayori, and a sword. Now they would have recognized him as a Shinigami. Just instinctively they knew he was a Shinigami. They didn't actually have any knowledge on what Shinigami were. So he would then walk up to Ichigo and he would say, "Fascinating. It seems you have evolved to a Vasta Lorde in so many, so less, what's the word? In short time." And he would say, "So what's your name?" So Zangetsu would, or not Zangetsu, but Ichigo would kind of breathe out. He can't really talk. Since he's a Hollow, they don't really have, he could talk, but it's kind of how his Vasta Lorde was. He could barely talk. He's like, "Kurosaki, Ichigo." I'm not very good at, voice, mimicry. So, but Ichigo would state his name, and Aizen would be quite surprised since he remembers this from Masaki Kurosaki, and Ishin's kid, and how, Ichigo was killed by Grand Fisher, and that made him very angry. So, pretty much Aizen would take the Hokyoku out of his pocket, and he would then use it on, Okura, Stark, and, Ichigo. Now, I'm going to give Stark and Okura kind of more power. So, pretty much what would be happening is Aizen would have his heart intent would basically be, give Ichigo his full potential. So, and any of the powers he had in the current manga, any of the powers he currently has would merge with his manga powers in a sense, and he would be, restored to that of a Shinigami. So, a blur or a flashing light would happen, and there would be a shattering of glass before Ichigo then be to be revealed as quite a he would still have his orange hair, but the thing is he would have kind of a more pale face, and for some reason his lips would have been red, which just a little too red. It's how you start sucking your lips and that causes the blood to run into your lips and they look like you just put makeup on or something like that. It's kind of like that. So, but it's kind of permanent. And also Ichigo got a scar fighting Hollows across his mouth, so that's also another reason why it's red, because he has a scar there, just like the Joker has. Somebody literally took a knife and went to the inside of his mouth and made a smile. I don't even know why I took that tone, but basically Okura and Stark, they would have received the same power up, but it would have been unintentional, and it's not going to be bad anyway. So Okura and Stark, they would have the usual appearances as canon when it came to their Arrancar appearance. Now, pretty much what would happen next is Aizen would take them to Las Noches. Now, they would come up a castle, and Ichigo would be like, "Wow, it's beautiful." And Aizen would say, "Yes, it's quite beautiful." Ichigo would ask, "So, what did you use to build this? You don't look like the man who can build." Aizen would then respond, "I had many of the, Adhukas and low Vasta Lordes build it for me. I taught them techniques and ways to build with my knowledge from Soul Society." Ichigo would say, "Soul Society?" Aizen would say, "Oh, you seem confused about the world, how the world works. So I'll take some time and explain it to you once we get back." They would then walk in, and Aizen would explain, "Don't get lost in these hallways. You can sometimes walk forever and you wouldn't even notice." So he then tell them to follow right behind him, and he would walk through the hallways with ease, knowing kind of the way to walk through. So they would head over to his the table where all these spadas met in canon, and they would all sit down, and Aizen would call Kaname and tell him to basically get some tea. Now, pretty much Kaname would say, "Of course, Lord Aizen." Man, I can't believe it. People actually call me Lord Aizen, though. Not gonna lie. Think God said it's cringe, but it is what it is. So Kaname would come back with the tea, and he would hand it over, and they would start to sip on their tea before Aizen would start to explain to them how Soul Society and World Living are two sides of the same coin. He would tell Ichigo, Ukura, and Stark at some point they were living in the world of the living, and they died. They were then cleansed, and then not cleansed, or they can be cleansed, but these, they weren't cleansed. They turned into hollows, and they became evolved, and you obviously know the rest of the story since you were there and all. And then you would explain to them what the Soul Society is, what Hell is, and what the Soul Palace is. He would explain to them the Soul King and how it works. And, obviously Ichigo did not like the presence of the Soul King itself. How can a being be living and not living, and then how can a bunch of 46 old men and women actually command everything when they have no power to actually back it up? And I can tell you, if you were ruled by 46 older men and women who have no power whatsoever, you wouldn't like it either. So unless you were in bed. Nah, I'm just kidding. Calm down. I mean, if you're down bad like that, we don't judge here. Vice is always has that rule called like married to Aizen. Never mind, it's all a joke though. So pretty much we continue this what if kind of a little bit after that meeting. Now Aizen would call them down to the training ground, and once they would get there, pretty much Aizen, there'd be a huge pit of fire just in the middle, and Aizen would walk up to each one of them, and he would hand them a sushi. Then they would pretty much he would tell them that they'll be fighting these beings, these Asuchi, and it would show like these kind of the same test Owetsu gave to Ichigo in canon. So pretty much they would have went through and fought all the beings, and obviously Ichigo would fail. He doesn't know himself, he doesn't understand how his sword works, so of course he has to fail. It's natural. So Ichigo fails while Ukura and Stark get their Zanpakuto, and it's a little more upgraded. He doesn't like Lily's in there. Okay, wait, I think her name is Lily. Just his other half. And Ukura would just still have his usual Zanpakuto, but it would had a more he would have more multipliers when it came to its abilities and its release. Now, pretty much what would happen next is Aizen would tell Ichigo the truth, all of it. He was part Quincy, part Hollow, part Shinigami, part Fullbring, part everything at that point. And Ichigo would learn the truth about who his parents were, and yeah. So he would then go back, and he would be walking through the hallways back to the training ground, and he would easily pass the test before he would then walk up to the flames before reaching in. And the thing is, his hands didn't even work, like they didn't even feel burned at all. Before he would then reach in, grab the Zanpakuto or grab something, he felt it. He was like searching his soul, or that's what it felt like, which he was really doing. And he would then pull out two Zanpakutos. Now, pretty much there would be the usual Zanpakutos like in canon, the dual wield not Bankai, but the dual wield Zanpakutos, Zangetsu. Then he would then pull them out, and he would say the same sentence, I'm not gonna ask for your help, Zangetsu. I'm not gonna push you away, Zangetsu, because they're like the hollow side. And then he would say, I'm not gonna ask for help. I'm just gonna be by myself. Then he was gonna say, those Zanpakutos are me. I am the Zanpakuto in a sense. It's just it's a interesting accepting panel, like that was shown in chapter 542. Now, after Ichigo would take out his Zanpakutos, Aizen would be looking quite fascinated about Ichigo's growth. And basically this would start their training for about maybe 3 years. Now in these 3 years, Ichigo would be taught every Shinigami technique. He would then be taught Quincy techniques, everything at that point. He just would have been overpowered. Now, Stark and Ukura, they would have reached their own evolution, like Ukura learning his Segunda Etapa, which Aizen always knew about, and he would have learned how to like sustain it more and how to not just regenerate more than internal organs. Like he can regenerate anything. Like, okay, I'm gonna stop myself. So Ukura's healing ability, it healed everything except the internal organs. But this time he can heal the internal organs. He can heal anything else. Then he can have more of an offensive ability with his Lanza Dewa Lapengo. I try to say that fast, but I got that right. And that attack would have more destruction. Like when he threw it, it probably maybe did 5 times more the destruction potency of his cannon attack. Stark will learn how to use his guns more, like the Sero. Like he shoots Seros out, and they would be more compressed, so he can shoot more of it, I guess, in a sense. And yeah, they all would have reached their own evolution. So what would happen as Aizen would explain to them that they're gonna go to Karakura Town and they're gonna kill everyone. And that didn't seem like a bad idea for them. So everyone, or Ichigo, all of Aizen's force, they would have went over to Karakura, where the same goat captains would be there. And Ichigo would start to smile, and the cuts on his face would start to show, and he would kind of look like the Joker. Now pretty much he would tell Aizen, if you can do the release the technique. Aizen would say, well, go ahead. Ichigo would then get the sign of that, like when he would then use like the release technique from Naruto, but you would just do that for a second before the edges of Karakura Town, the fake Karakura Town, would start to blow up. So if you guys are wondering what happened, Ichigo then placed like bomb things. I mean, it wasn't like actual like bombs like in the real world. It was like keto based bombs. He would have put them all around the edges, and he would have pretty much put bombs everywhere. Since if you guys don't know, Joker in the Batman Arkham Knight movie, he put bombs everywhere. Like I think he put bombs in the yacht, or the boats, the huge boats, and he had everyone choose if they're gonna kill all the criminals or they're gonna kill all the civilians, the innocent civilians. But they didn't choose to blow up anyone at the end. So everything, like all the bombs would detonate, and this would cause a huge hit to the moral. The fake Karakura Town was about to collapse. A few more attacks and they would start to actually destroy Karakura Town. Now Aizen would say, "It's great, good job, Ichigo, and that's why you're gonna become Soul King." And pretty much, if you guys are wondering why isn't Aizen being Soul King, Aizen always wanted to be Soul King, and that's never changed. Well, it's gonna be like Ichigo becomes Soul King, and then Aizen kind of is like the leader technically. It's like Ichigo's only like a figure, but Ichigo's like Aizen would allow Ichigo to do all the changes he wants in Soul Society. It's not actual real control, like he's not like an actual corrupt leader in a sense. And what would happen is Yamamoto would release his Shikai, and he would use his prison fire technique. Yeah, I kind of forgot the name though. I'm not really, I would only really remember if I was doing like what if Naruto is Yamamoto's reincarnation, but now I'm not really focused on remembering. So yeah, he would then use his fire technique and completely I'm trying to remember it, but I don't care. He would then trap Aizen and Gin and Kaname in fire before Ichigo and the rest of the Espada would have their fights. Now if you're wondering who is Ichigo fighting, so Ichigo would then take on all the Vizards, pretty much like after the Vizards would take off all those Gillians, and all the other Espadas would have their usual fight, but Ukura would help Stark against fighting Shunsui. So hopefully, I'm gonna try and make Shunsui pull out his Bankai. It would be, interesting. So what would happen is Ichigo would then, Shunpo in front of the Vizards before he would say, "Look what we have here. A bunch of macaron cars who think they're all that. Let me just show you how inferior you are." He would then pretty much throw off his hat he was wearing, and he would then pretty much take off the cloak he was wearing before unsheathing his sword. and like materializing his sword, his two dual blades before doing a Getsuga Jujutsu. Now, if you guys are wondering, it's the Joker. He has to have some green in it. So Ichigo's Getsuga would be based on his motion. If he's calm, it's gonna be blue. If he's a little mad, it's gonna turn into like blue and green together. It's like, I don't really know what the color is, but you guys get the vibe. And then when he's really mad, it's gonna turn like green. So Ichigo, for some reason, he looked at the visors and he just hated their existence for some reason. It's probably because he hated the inner hollows inside them, and he just simply misplaced his anger. So he would then use a Getsuga Jujutsu, and what would happen is Hachi would try to use one of his barriers to block the technique, but Ichigo would say that Kido shield is inferior. I have power of that of all races. Your puny shield won't do anything to me. After this, that's exactly what happened. The Getsuga would completely shatter through the shield before it would hit Hachi, and it would completely take off his arm. His other arm, at least. The arm that wasn't already taken off by Baragon. So, Ichigo would then flash up behind Hiyori before splitting her in half, just like Aizen did to her. I think it was Aizen. No, maybe it was... I can't remember who split in half. She's kind of an irrelevant character. So he would then do the same as Hiyori was injured in canon before Shinji would start to get mad, and he would calm himself. Ichigo wants him to charge at him recklessly. He wouldn't say, "Well, I guess he wanted to fight." He would then raise his blade in the air before saying, "Collapse, collapse, Sakanade." Now after this, a mist would start to release from the sword, and like a circle would form at the edge of the handle of Sakanade. Shinji would then grab like the middle of it. For some reason, he wasn't holding it, but he was still like moving it. He would start to spin it around. He would say, you smell that, Ichigo?" After this, Ichigo would realize, he was like, Shinji would then say, "It's too late to hold your breath. It's already in your system." After this, we would then see a wonderful scene of Shinji saying, "Welcome to the inverted world." So everything with Ichigo's visual senses would be inverted. When Shinji would swing to the left of Ichigo would be to the right. Same thing, inverted senses. So Shinji would then run at Ichigo before he would swing. So a huge a cut would form on Ichigo's shoulder and his back. And pretty much Ichigo would realize this was a visual technique, so it wasn't like Aizen's Kyoka Suigetsu, which he fought against multiple times and almost won. So he thinks it's just an inferior version of Kyoka Suigetsu. Ichigo would then reach into his pocket, pull out a blindfold similar to that of Gojo, and he would put it on before he would then start to fight. He would then use his instincts to basically see where the Shinji is. He would then reform his blade to that of Tensa Zangetsu, Ichigo's fake Bankai, but this time it'll just be his him materializing his Quincy blade in a sense. So what would happen is he would then charge up his Ryatsu into his blade, compressing it before releasing it into a beam, like a Getsuga Tensho. Then this would pretty much be kind of huge, like in attack potency. Before he would then, the Getsuga would be sent towards Shinji, and Shinji would then use a Bakuron in number 81 Danku, which would then pretty much be able to block him from the attack, but it would still have the attack behind him, and it would still cause its effects behind him, but he would still not be injured. So what would happen is the few blocks behind him, it would just be reduced into dust. Ichigo's attack would have been too powerful. So what would happen is Shinji would think, my Bankai is useless. My Shikai is neutralized. Did I really lose? After this, Ichigo would say, yes, you did. He would then appear behind Shinji before slicing him in half. Now, if you're wondering how did Ichigo even read his mind, when Ichigo clashes with his enemy, he can sense their emotions. So he would sense Ichigo, Shinji's, him questioning himself if he's gonna win. So Ichigo answered him. So after this, Ichigo would look to the fight, and he would see Ukuro and Stark fighting and pressing Shunsui. Like anytime Shunsui tries Takeoni or Kageoni, the other would save each other. So the teamwork really helped them. So Shunsui would have been pushed, and there would have been no one really close behind near him. And Yamamoto would see that Shunsui is gathering Ryatsu into his blade, and he might actually use it. After this, Yamamoto would be like, these enemies are strong, to push Shunsui into using his Bankai. After we'll switch to Shunsui's perspective. Now Shunsui would be like, I didn't want to have to use this, but hey, feel proud. You're the first person to actually make me use this. He would then stab his blade into something, the air itself, before he would say, Bankai. Now his Zanpakuto, a interesting looking lady, she's quite beautiful, and would form around, and would wrap her arms around his neck, and pretty much this would be Katen Kyoketsu. Now she would say, you're calling me this early? I didn't know you'd use your Bankai so recklessly. After this, Shunsui would say, I know you were like taking a nap, but like I might lose this, which my Shikai alone, I can't really win this, and I kind of want to defeat them and take my nap early, if you get my vibe. Katen Kyoketsu would say, well, I guess it was needed, or it was a necessity. Before they would start the first stage. Now what would happen is Ukuro would then throw a Lanza del Relapengo, and it would hit Shunsui through the heart. And what would happen is Shunsui would use the first stage, so any attack he receives, his opponent receives. I'm trying to go about this a little fast since it's a one shot, so forgive me if I go a little too fast, but I won't. I'll try not to. So Ukuro would then like a hole would start to appear in Ukuro's chest if he doesn't already have one. I'm not trying to roast him, but in the left side of his chest. Now kind of a it's not too big, would form in his chest, and then it would kind of expand. Now after this, Ukuro's high speed factor would kick in, and it would start to close. Now after this will just be a battle of whose Ryatsu depletes first. So what happened is he would Shunsui would do the second stage, and all the drowning water would pretty much commence. Now Ichigo would try something, like he would be a bitch about this. He's the Joker pretty much, and he would appear behind Ukuro and Stark, and he would start to infuse as much Ryatsu he has, since Ichigo has nearly limitless. And Shunsui would be shocked. He's gonna die here because Ichigo pretty much gave him all of his Ryatsu, and Shunsui can't really keep up with that. So unfortunately, our boy Shunsui is gonna bite the dust from Ichigo's plot armor. I told you, Ronin, this plot armor is too strong for him. Like, that shit smoked his pack at that point. But never mind. After Shunsui's dead, Ukitake would start to get mad, and he would beg the Mimihagi to basically kill Ichigo and Okura and Stark. The Mimihagi would then pretty much not block the disease, like Ukitake's disease, and they would he would go after Ichigo. Now Ichigo would look over, side glance at this, and it would be the Mimihagi forming into an actual body, like a shadow body in a sense. And it would have been the left hand of the Soul King, so it would have been quite powerful. So the Mimihagi would throw a punch at Ichigo, and Ichigo would just grab his hand before absorbing it. Now, Ichigo would then form one of the almighty eyes into his right eye, and he would then take off the blindfold, and he would realize what power he has just received, or at least a portion of the power. And then what would happen next is he would then look towards all the captains, or at least specifically Yamamoto, and he realized he needs to take him down. So he would then activate his Bankai, Tensa Zangetsu, his real Bankai, and he would then go and flash step right behind Yamamoto. Yamamoto would try to throw fire at him, but Ichigo would just run through it. He would then say, "You're out of here!" Before pretty much he would split Yamamoto in half using Getsuga Tensho, splitting him just like he did to Yuha in canon in the manga chapter 684. And Yamamoto's body would just pretty much separate. The chest would say goodbye to the legs. Let's just say that. Now, he would then kill Yamamoto before Aizen, Gin, and Aizen would go pretty much steal the Hokyoku, give it to his other Hokyoku, and, start to evolve. So Ichigo and Aizen would kind of be like a duo, and they would start to, fight Urahara, Ishin, and Yoruichi. Now, pretty much Yoruichi would then try to throw a kick at Ichigo. Ichigo would be like, so, Yoruichi Shihoen, 22nd head of the Shihoen clan. Such wasted potential. I see you're hiding a form. Why hide it? Now, Uruhara noticed that he seems to know what he's talking about, like Yoruichi's lightning technique, I guess, in a sense. And she says, where's your Zanpakuto all these years and you haven't even showed your Shikai? What arrogance from a lowly, impudent human such as yourself. Even though you're not a human, but you act like one. Before he would slap her, and this would pretty much take off her head. After this, Uruhara would pretty much become bloodlusted, as so does Ishin, because their friend just died. And Uruhara would then use his Bankai, and he would try to appear behind Aizen to reconstruct his whole body. But after this, Aizen would just shatter into little pieces, and Uruhara realized he's been under his illusion. Aizen's illusion is working against him. Before a sword would then pierce through his chest, and he would say, well, Uruhara, you were quite a smart man, but I guess your love for Yoruichi really blinded you. I can't believe you let such emotion block such intelligence. Why? Before he would then take off his head, and he would say, such unfortunate behavior. He would then Ichigo and then walk up to Uruhara and absorb him, and he did the same with Yoruichi, getting all their techniques and their Zanpakuto just like the others, but they were just too weak. Like, why would you use a weak Zanpakuto? So he would just absorb their Reishi in general. He would then walk up to Ishin, and Ishin would recognize him. It would be Ichigo. Ishin would say, Ichigo, is that you? And Ichigo would kind of be shocked, since number one, he was told about his parents, but he wasn't really told or shown how they looked. And he would say, oh, it seems you're my father, or at least my past life. That doesn't really matter now. He would then pretty much use a Getsuga Tensho, and Ishin would try to use it, and there would be just a few seconds of the Getsugas clashing before Ichigo would say, so, you seem to be equal to 10% of my power? Ichigo would then infuse more Ryatsu to the Getsuga, and it's about 15% before Ichigo, like his dad, couldn't handle it anymore. So the Getsuga would have killed him as well. I'm kind of working characters kind of fast, so forgive me on that one. Now Ichigo and Aizen would have killed all of the other threats, and pretty much Gin, for some reason, would not do the same thing he did in canon. And pretty much, if you guys are running, what's happening? Gin would obviously want to use his Bankai and Aizen. What the fuck? So, pretty much before that fight, Ichigo would have known about Gin's plan. He is the Joker. Like, why wouldn't he know? So, he would then make Gin a deal. He would then tell Gin he'll spare Rangiku, since he can see why he does everything. And he even tells, Gin that he'll restore her soul back to its original state. Now, Gin obviously would not betray Aizen, and he would actually start, following him in a sense. And, once it gets to Karakura Town, Ichigo would then walk up to Rangiku, and she would start to, back up, until Ichigo would say, whoa, I'm not really into that. Before he would then tap her forehead, and her soul would be resumed or replenished back to its original state. Now, pretty much, he would then pick her up and throw her onto his shoulder before going and then dropping her by Gin. He would then say, our deal's good, right? Gin would then, nod his head before he would then walk over to Aizen, and he would say, so how does this Oken technique work? So pretty much Ichigo would then would be told by Aizen how it works. It was a technique where they infuse all their Ryatsu. And since technically Shinigamis have a piece of the Soul King, since Soul King created all, they have some pieces of Ryatsu. If they were to absorb every human, since humans technically have pieces of Ryatsu, they would then absorb it, creating Oken. They would then, he would split the Oken into pieces, giving his all of his subordinates his the Oken, or at least Okura, Stark, Aizen, Gin, and Ichigo. So what would happen is they would do a few incantations before they would use the technique, and they would pretty much be all Fuck you, Izukage. Come on, man. No, I'm just kidding. Everyone subscribe to Izukage. The link's in the description below. But back to the what if. Now, also join his channel. I couldn't really join his channel. I mean, I'm a joning, or I was a joning, but never mind. Back to the what if. Now, Aizen and Ichigo and all the other subordinates, Gin, Sark, Ukiura would all have the Okin before they would all open a portal to the Soul Palace, which would take them a few hours, since it's literally, I mean, like, it would take them 1 week. All right, I'm kind of really putting it down when it's saying hours, but they would then use this 1 week to their advantage to train, and since they're going to be fighting the Zero Squad, which are the strongest Shinigami in all Soul Society, they're fighting the Sword God, the Weaving God, the what do you call Ichibe? The Wisdom God. You would call the Food God. That's Hikafune. Then you would call yeah, I think that's it. Senjomaru, Ichibe, Oetsu, Hikafune. Who's the last Zero Squad member? I thought there was 5. Oh, and Korinchi. Yeah, the Bathwater God. So they would then make it to the Soul Palace after 1 week. And, you know, looking a bit older at least, since they just went through the down guy. They've been there for 1 week, so they would have looked a little bit older. They would have had I guess their hair, facial hair would have grown a little bit, but they would have made it up to the Soul Palace. And pretty much once they would got there, they would pretty much start to fight the Zero Squad. Aizen and Ichigo would fight Ichibe. Ukiura, Sark, and Gin would try to handle the other members, but they would be having a hard time. But due to their evolution, pretty much Aizen and Ichigo gave them a power. Every time they fight, they would naturally evolve, but it would have been kind of like a knocked out version of the Hokyoku, but without all the wishes. It would just evolve. Now, pretty much Ichigo and Aizen would start to fight the Soul King. I'm sorry, not the Soul King. Forgive me, Ichibe. And Ichibe would start to use his Shikai, and he would start to he would like stab Ichigo with his paint. I mean his calligraphy staff, and pretty much he would say, "I hereby sentence you, Ichigo Kurosaki, to the powers of that of an ant, a measly ant." In Arabic it's called Nemil, but that doesn't matter. He would then give Ichigo the power of an ant, or curse him to the power of the ant, before he would then turn to Aizen using the hidden Hado number 3, Tepetsu. Now after this, Aizen then used Bakudo number 81, Danku, which would completely block the technique. Ichibe would say, "What? A Bakudo number 81 should only block that techniques of 89 and under." Aizen then explained, "Yes, you're quite right. A technique definition from that of the academy. But I am not an academy student. I am a transcendent god. This Bakudo 81 I used should be way evolved of that of your hidden Hado. So, of course, my Danku would obviously block your technique, and due to my Ryatsu being naturally higher than yours, the technique would obviously be subdued." Ichigo would then use his Almighty Eye, and he would then change the future where he was injured before he would appear behind Ichibe and just split him in half. Ichigo and Aizen would go help their other friends before they would completely kill off like the Zero Squad members. Aizen would then walk up to the Soul King, and he would tell Ichigo, "How about you do the honors?" So what would happen is Ichigo would be handed Kyokasuigetsu just to stab him off. And if you guys are wondering, the fuck, why didn't Ichigo just like use his own sword? It's just, I like this what's the word? I just like this satisfaction. Ichigo would then hold Kyokasuigetsu, and he would start to feel the power of the Kyokasuigetsu running through his veins just for a moment before he would then raise his blade before like splitting Yuha in half. Little did Ichigo know, Aizen put a little technique into his sword, which made it so anyone who was holding it killed someone with it, they would absorb it. So this would count for the Soul King. So Ichigo would accidentally absorb the Soul King unintentionally. He was gonna do it anyway, and Ichigo would kind of become like black substances would cover his body, and it would have all eyes in them. The eye color would be red. He would have then 3 eyes in each of his sockets, and that would be that of the Almighty. It would then, for some reason, start to fall, and he would have like that of a spasm. Before, for some reason, he would feel every shrift come into his body. Since the Soul King has every shrift, he has the Almighty. He's pretty OP. He has every full bring. So pretty much Ichigo absorbing the Soul King would gain him every power, and pretty much Aizen would be like, yes, this is exactly what I planned. This is why I chose you, Kurosaki Ichigo. You're the only one who could absorb all these powers and only have a small side effect for a few seconds. But anyone else who did this, they would completely be erased from existence from the power overload. After this, Ichigo would then get up and he would start to sit on the throne, becoming that of the Soul King. And pretty much, obviously, Aizen would have his own throne, and he would not be like Ichigo's underling. He doesn't like to be ruled. So from now on, Ichigo and Aizen would rule the world for the rest of eternity. Now, there would be pretty much no ship, since I don't really think there could be any ship. If you guys want to choose one, go ahead. I can definitely see Neliel. Yeah, that's it. Without further ado, guys, yeah. Yuha would obviously, since Ichigo is the Soul King, he would, retain an ability to erase anyone from existence. This would include that of Yuha, who is still recovering from his 1,000-year injury, I guess you could say. But without further ado, guys, have a good day.